What's going on, guys? JHoyt back with you. Today, we're trying a couple of new things out this weekend. We got a different mic position. Plus, we have a new way that we're going to be recapping the CDL Chicago homestand with some Call of Duty Modern Warfare in the background, as usual, with some CDL playlists. We got some domination on Gunrunner, one of my favorite maps, by the way. And like I said, we're recapping the Chicago homestand. And pretty much it went straightforward, except for a couple of matches. But of course, we'll get into that later on. But our first matchup of the event featured Atlanta and London. And Atlanta showing their true class. 3-0 knocks London right to loser's bracket with pretty much ease. I mean, London, on paper, these guys should be a good team. They just made a roster change. They subbed out Rated. They put in Shawnee as, I believe, that flex. I don't really know maybe what their roles are there. But on paper, London should be a good team. But they just haven't put it all together just yet. But the next matchup featured the hometown team, Chicago, against the New York Subliners. New York at the bottom of the leaderboard, or not the leaderboard, the standings. Chicago at the top, should have been an easy, probably 3-0, maybe 3-1. New York, though, makes a roster change. They pick up Mac. Where the heck did this New York team come from? Like, they came out and started frying versus Chicago. Very surprising. This goes game 5. Chicago ends up losing. And I don't know what it was with Chicago in this, like, in that matchup, because New York, hasn't been a good team all year, but then all of a sudden they make a roster change, all the events move to online, and then all of a sudden New York can win a match? So really shocking performance there from New York. Don't really know where that came from. Now, usually after the first two matches of Group A, usually I jump over to Group B. However, let's recap all of Group A, then we're going to Group B, and then we'll get into the semifinals. So our round 2 matchup of Group A featured Atlanta and the New York Subliners. Now, the Subliners, right, they just took out the top team in this event, arguably, right? The #1 team in the standings. They go up against Atlanta FaZe. What can they do against that team? How about another game 5 versus one of the best teams in the league, if not arguably the best team in the league? Game 5, New York takes it there. However, Atlanta, once again, wins that one, right? 3-2, game 5. Where is this New York team coming from? They put Chicago out of the main bracket into the losers bracket so far. They took Atlanta to a game 5. Where did this New York team come from? Don't really know, but we got to jump down to the loser side of the bracket, of course, where it's going to be a rematch of Chicago and New York, right? These guys just played, and it went to game 5. New York won this one. However, this time, not the case. Chicago gets the revenge against the Subliners. They win this one 3-1, and Chicago moves on to the semifinals. But, like, really shocking performances from New York, honestly. Like, they win their first match versus Chicago. They take Atlanta to a game 5, and then Chicago beats them in a game 4. From where New York was before this event to where they are now, isn't much different. But their play has definitely shown that they can hang with the top teams with this roster. Now, again, it is online, but it's at least a little bright spot for this event for New York. But in order to get to the semifinals, we got to catch up with Group B. We had the first matchup of Seattle versus the LA Guerrillas. This one really straightforward. Seattle 3-0 once again over LA. Not really much to talk about. LA or the Guerrillas, just they're not a good team. I don't know what to tell you. Then we had the second matchup featuring the second LA team, Optic Gaming, versus the Dallas Empire. This one went pretty straightforward. I mean, kind of surprising that Ogla even took a map, but Dallas wins this one 3-1. And then that put the Battle of Los Angeles in the first round of the losers bracket, as Optic Gaming Los Angeles didn't show up for this one. TJ Haley did not play well. JCab did not play well, and all of Optic just did not play well in this one. I mean, roster change is coming, possibly, but Dallas ends up winning that one, or excuse me, LA Guerrillas end up winning that one. I got a little behind there. But yeah, LA Guerrillas finally win a match, and they move on to the next round. Then on the winner's side, we had Dallas versus Seattle. As predicted, Dallas wins this one 3-1 over Seattle. And once again, Seattle, you need more than Octane. You will not win without more help, right? Athlete has been doing his best. Slack was showing up a little bit this weekend, but the rest of his team, where the heck are you? I don't know what their problem is. Again, we're going to be making a video upcoming here after this event. The teams that are struggling, what do they do to get better? But Seattle, you're just, you're looking really questionable if Octane isn't going off. In the Group B, losers round 2 matchup, we're going to have another matchup. Seattle versus the LA Guerrillas. This time, not a 3-0, but it's a 3-1, which a really interesting stat here that I saw that you could see on your screen. COD Gamespedia tweeted out this. The Seattle Surge versus the LA Guerrillas. Seattle is 4-0 when they face off, right? Seattle, 4-0 versus the LA Guerrillas. Seattle versus everyone else. Now, this was before their second matchup. I believe it's actually 0-10 now. So, they can beat basically the worst team in the league, but they can't beat anyone else. So, where the problem is, we'll find out later on. And in the round 3 semifinals, we're going to have the Atlanta FaZe versus the Seattle Surge. And the second matchup features the Dallas Empire versus the Chicago Huntsmen. The storied rivalry between Scump and Crim 6. But in that first matchup, Atlanta versus Seattle, really interesting. It was actually delayed because Apathy's power ends up going out. And originally it wasn't supposed to be on until an hour after that time. But luckily, and I mean luckily for Seattle, it came back just in time. They did not have to use a substitute, which everyone was kind of, you know, thinking. And Apathy comes back, and he actually kind of carried the team in this matchup, which was really, really weird, where he had the most kills in Hardpoint, right, just off of power being out. I believe he was top 2 in kills in the Search, and then Dom, I believe he was the highest Slayer on Seattle for that. So not that Octane, I mean, Octane wasn't really performing that great during that event, or that matchup, I should say. But Apathy, really surprising. I don't know if he really got much of a warm-up or not, but really, really surprising that you're able to just show up like that. So props to him. Even after all that, Atlanta does take this one 3-1. Just again, once again, Octane and Seattle. I mean, yes, Apathy kind of did really well in this one, but the rest of the team just was not there to help them. So, I mean, you have Octane, you have Apathy, but then Slacked, Karma, and Pander, I don't know if it's roles, I don't know if it's just overall talent, but something needs to change there. I know there was rumors of Pristini going over to Seattle, possibly, to create a sub-duo there. Not exactly sure if there's any truth to that, but just something to note what I saw during the event. Then that moves us on to the second matchup of round 3. We're going to have the Dallas Empire versus the Chicago Huntsmen. And this one was a 3-0 for Dallas. They finally win a matchup versus Chicago. And I hate to blame stuff like this on it, but I did hear there was internet issues. None of the players tweeted it out, but there was some people on the Twitter thread that were saying that, you know, there was a lot of skips and people lagging. So, don't know if there's any truth behind that. I personally didn't get to see a lot of this matchup, so I didn't really get to watch, you know, the full matches to see it for myself. So, take that with a grain of salt, but you know, Dallas does win this one 3-0. That puts us our final versus two of our best, you know, 3-4 teams in the league. Atlanta versus Dallas. And usually, if you're going to pick that matchup, it's going to be Atlanta. But this one, Dallas ends up winning this one 3-1. Kind of surprising, but then again, I'm not, because Dallas has always been a really good online team where they like consistently get praise about their like internet connection and the routers and everything, that they just have an unfair advantage or whatever, you know, people are saying. So take it with a grain of salt. Obviously it's online, but we have to say congratulations to the Dallas Empire, as they are the first ever multi-event winner of the CDL. So we've had 5 tournaments now. We've had 4 different winners, Dallas being the only one to win 2 so far. General thoughts on the event though: production, still weird. I don't know exactly how they're running stuff behind the scenes, but it just seems a little off still. And I believe this is what, our second event online, because I think Dallas was off, or was online as well. So I don't know what it is. I mean, production just seems like people are still talking ahead of each other, not on top of each other, but just like before they should be. So I'm guessing that's like a dual observer issue or something, but that's really kind of weird. But then the second thing is, so before this event, the CDL released more servers for the CDL. And I don't remember where all of them are, but they're relatively close to each of the teams, so that hopefully they could have a decent host and decent internet connection to where no one's going to lag or anything. So apparently they added into the rules that you can veto a host before the event. So I don't know if they like each team can veto a host and then they just pick one from there, or they just have a whole full-on veto system for the host. But so Dallas ended up, and I'm mainly talking about this matchup, Dallas versus Chicago, that Dallas ended up vetoing the Texas host. Now, there's 2 things to this that are interesting, right? Now, there's a couple players I'm not sure where they're playing out of right now. For Chicago, you have at least Scump, Envoy, Gunless, and Arcides all playing in Texas. Then you have Formal that's in California right now. Then on the side of Dallas, you're going to have Crim, Clay, and I'm not sure where Hook and Shotzi are playing from, but you have at least Crim and Clay that are playing from Texas somewhere. Hook and Shotzi don't know. And then Illy said he's in Canada. So you have one person that's relatively far away, right? You have California versus Canada, where I don't know where Illy's from in Canada, but he's somewhere in Canada. And then you have 2 unknowns, which I don't know where they're from. And they both say U.S., so I'm not sure where that is. So I'm guessing not Canada. Maybe they're in Dallas, in the Dallas training facility. Not exactly sure. But wouldn't you want a Dallas host, or not Dallas host, but a Texas host for 6 out of the 10 players having a Texas connection? I don't know. Maybe that's just me. But then also, maybe you don't want that Texas connection because of 6 out of 10 players having a Texas connection, with, especially 4 out of the 5 of Chicago being in Texas. So is it strategy? Is it stupid? I don't really know. But just wanted to make that known, that there is kind of a veto system for different servers. But anyway, guys, I'm going to wrap this one up here. Congrats once again to the Dallas Empire. I hate to say it, but they are the first multi-event winner of the CDL. As you can see on your screen, the CDL points following CDL Chicago. Dallas Empire now in first place with 150 points. Chicago right behind them with 130. The Atlanta FaZe with 120. Florida, Minnesota, and Paris do not move in this one, as they are not at this event. London is top 7 with 40 points. Seattle's tied with them. The LA Guerrillas, Optic Gaming, the New York Subliners, and Toronto Ultra all sit tied for 9th, but all still at the bottom of the leaderboard. That's actually crazy that there's 130 points between first and last right now. That's insane. But anyway, guys, like I said, I'm wrapping this one up here. If you did enjoy, hit the like button down below. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button. And as always, guys, we'll see you next time.